Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Fran. In this channel, I share knowledge and practical techniques on trauma healing and everything about mental health. In this video, I want to be talking about 3 unhelpful behavior responses towards abandonment anxiety and 2 tips for better coping. Let's jump right into it. For people with attachment trauma, it's very easy for us to be triggered of abandonment anxiety. It doesn't mean that actual abandonment has to happen in our childhood. It just means that maybe we grew up in an environment that's unhealthy. Like we constantly get neglected, ignored, or abused as children, which makes us feel like, well, we're not important, we're not wanted, we're not loved, and the world is unsafe. So we constantly get stuck in this hypervigilant state to look for any signs, any possible situations that resemble distancing or leaving or abandonment. In my other video, I've talked about what causes fear of abandonment, and I'm gonna put it up here, so if you're interested, you can check them out later. But when we're getting triggered, the pain is beyond describable. Out of nowhere, we may start to experience those strong negative emotions like anxiety, shame, or anger. We find ourselves to space out from the scene. We find ourselves getting trapped in our own head with overwhelming and intrusive thoughts, which seem extremely familiar, and we will have this nagging awareness that something is wrong. And we start to see images and flashbacks from the past, but because it's so overwhelming, we really cannot identify what's in the past and what's in the reality. Then we start to have this compulsive urge to act on the thoughts to avoid being abandoned and being disconnected. The purpose of this video is to really help you develop more consciousness towards the way you act habitually and examine that if they are really helpful for you or they are only temporary relief but brings longer and worse consequences. The first unhelpful reaction is hostility and defensiveness. Maybe you text your boyfriend and in a couple of hours he still hasn't responded. So you are being triggered of abandonment anxiety. And you start to become very defensive because you're angry. You're thinking, well, you are doing this intentionally trying to hurt me and trying to show me that you wanted to leave me. And you show this hostile attitude. And you might angry dial him for like 1,000,000 times, and you may try to criticize, you may try to blame. It's all your fault and you're doing this so our relationship isn't working, and do some bluffing that I'm not afraid of leaving you, I don't like you that much. If you ever do this again, I'm gonna leave you, I'm gonna break up with you. And this could also include some passive-aggressive behaviors. Even though on the surface you don't act in extremes, even though on the surface you don't say anything, you pretend to go along with whatever his excuse or his explanation is, but underneath all that, there's unexpressed anger and resentment towards this person. Even though you're acting like you're going along with this person, but deep down you know you're holding grudge and you're trying to rebel against him. For a lot of us, our habitual response would go straight to helplessness when we're getting triggered, when we're facing the threat of being abandoned. Just like a hurt little child. When you're sensing someone is trying to distance from you, when you sense that you're going to get negative reactions from this person, maybe they're angry, maybe they're upset, maybe they're unhappy. There can be a reason that they're doing this, maybe because of themselves, but you will interpret it as it's towards you. You will take it personally because you feel like you're personally responsible for their emotions. You feel like their negative response is a reflection of you, of your value, of who you are. So it must be that something wrong is with you or you did something wrong. So you would try to give up all your power to surrender. In order to avoid upsetting them, in order to not being disconnected and being abandoned by this unhappy person, you would do anything you can to comply, to accommodate, to please. Because you believe that if you adapt to this person, if you give up who you are to change for this person, to make them happy, to cater to their needs and emotions, you believe that positive changes can happen. So as a result of this, you might sulk, you might feel anxiously depressed, you would automatically give up your inner strength, your inner agency, inner resources to actually be strong and solve this issue. You will go straight to helplessness. You will go straight to this anxious, depressed state because you don't know anything you can do to change the situation. You believe there's nothing you can do. The third unhelpful reaction is clinginess and neediness. When you start to suspect that someone is leaving you or abandoning you, you may even find yourself desperately trying to cling to this person even more. you may find yourself return to this child state that you're needing your life support resource. You become overly sensitive and hypervigilant towards any sign this person's leaving you. So you try to cling to this person even more with white knuckles. You may constantly wonder what this person is doing, even though you're like physically distant, but you're like living their lives. You're trying to picture yourself walking on their shoes to go through their daily lives. This is not a healthy way of relating, because it's like you're breaking this internal boundary to other people's life. Because you don't have this healthy sense of self, you need to visualize yourself being enmeshed with another person. Or even you need to imagine being watched by the other person. You're imagining getting positive feedback. You're imagining getting positive connection and affirmations from this person so that you can be reassured. You may feel like this kind of relating and this kind of enmeshment is what you need to be not abandoned, to keep this relationship alive. So you desperately wanted to blend in with this person, to desperately cling to this person so that you can be reassured that nothing bad is happening. All of these reactions can happen at the same time depending on your coping styles. For example, if you sense that your boyfriend is leaving you out of some subtle signals, maybe they're unhappy, this is something mean, and they rejected you for something, and you feel like, whoa, this person is leaving me, you might act really angry because you feel like, how dare you do this to me? How dare you reject me? You're supposed to meet all my needs. And then you feel regretful for lashing out on him because you feel like, well, you're worried that this person might leave you. So you desperately cling to this person. You desperately just trying to apologize and trying to, say sweet things to please him, to really cater to his needs and emotions so that you can stay in control of this situation, so that you can know for sure that this person is not leaving you. Now I'm gonna offer 2 tips for better coping when you are getting triggered of this abandonment anxiety. The first one, of course, is to be aware. Most of the time, those reactions happen really fast. They are so automatic that we don't even realize that we coped with the situation in our habitual way. We don't even ask that if they're helpful or healthy for us to deal in this specific way. So I wanted to go over those 3 things very carefully and get yourself as familiarized as possible. And that's the first step towards being aware of them. So next time when you're getting triggered, when you're using your habitual way of coping, you can stop, you can have this gap to say to yourself that, well, I almost did this again. I almost lashed out on this person. Becoming aware of it is the very essential first step. And the second step is a DBT skill. When I was going through my trauma healing process, I find DBT, dialectical behavior therapy, really helpful in increasing distress tolerance, meaning that I'm learning to regulate my emotions instead of running away from it. So doing the opposite really helps me to decrease the intensity of my emotion by facing it, by acknowledging it, by regulating it. It's not a way of denying, actually. Acting out urges and coping in the same habitual, unhelpful way might help in the short run, might make us temporarily feel good because we feel safe by using the same old method. But in the long run, it actually increases our vulnerability of being triggered. And also, it makes us avoid similar situations, even though it's really good situation, like it's nothing threatening, nothing dangerous, but we feel like we need to avoid them because we don't want to be triggered of the same intensive emotions, which decreases our life's possibility. Doing the opposite is very self-explanatory by its name, because it says that when we're trying to act in the same old habitual way, we choose to do the opposite. For example, if I habitually would vent, would lash out, what I need to do is to acknowledge the feelings. Well, I feel angry. Well, I have this thought which makes me want to do hurtful things to this person. But I'm not going to do it. I might go towards this person and state calmly and assertively to express my true feelings. If my habitual habit is go straight to victimization, to be helpless, to act in this compliant way, I might take a deep breath and acknowledge that my impulse is to do this, but I choose to do the opposite. And I go towards this person to be open and vulnerable, to express my expectations of this relationship and how I want it to work. If what I usually do is to cling, to be needy towards this person, to call them up, to text them like 20 times a day, to check in, and to see if they want to relate to us. I choose to stay back. I choose to be engaged in my own things. I choose to connect with other people, with other meaningful relationship, if what I'm seeking for is connection. I choose to let go of control, to let the relationship take its natural course, to allow uncertainty in relationships, and to trust that if I do things at the best I could, in the best version of myself, the other person would do the same thing. Alright everyone, I hope this video is helpful. If you like it, please give it a thumbs up. If you wanted to see more videos like this, please subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.